not to date myself, but I've been doing this a while. And the one thing that hasn't changed, despite all the technology and changes in fees and law, is that at the end of the day, people really want to be heard. They are calling me and you at not a high point in their lives, but a very low point, stressed out, injured, their income is affected. They want to vent to a person, and that's what we do, right? We're like part therapists in a way.
Right. And they want to know that it's not, a lot of times they want to talk to the lawyer. One of my marketing things and why I get cases from other lawyers that refer me cases, because they know that I'm paying attention to the case. I'm primary, even though I have other people in the office, I'm going to be the one making decisions. The big firms are dominating, they get more cases, but your representation is not the same.
Hey there, hot messes. Welcome to Success of a Hot Mess, where we celebrate the art of juggling life's chaos and coming out on top. I'm Stacey Isaacs, your host and resident rock star lawyer, dance mom, and survivor. We're going to dive into candid conversations about conquering challenges, embracing our unique selves, and finding success in the beautiful mess of it all. Good afternoon. Welcome to Success of a Hot Mess podcast, brought to you by workinjuryrights.com. Today I have the pleasure of having Alex Perkins, owner of Perkins Law Offices, on the show. Welcome, Alex.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming. So you are the founder of Perkins Law Offices. Why don't you tell us what kind of law you practice?
I am a personal injury lawyer, so all things personal injury except workers' comp.
There you go.
I don't do workers' comp. That's a little bit different field, as you know. So what I do is car accidents, slip and falls, medical malpractice, and I have a niche practice in Miami of cruise ship injury law, and that's because the cruise lines are headquartered in Miami, a lot of the major ones, Norwegian, Carnival, Royal, Celebrity. So, and their cruise ticket contract requires you to bring suit in federal court in Miami. Hence, I do cruise ship injury law.
So is it true that all cruise ships have a morgue on the boat?
Yeah, I wouldn't, not all, but they do put you in the refrigerator. They do have a place where they keep that. They also have a little brig, for unruly guests and things like that. Yeah. It all depends on the ship, but wild things happen on these ships, and they're floating cities, and they don't have a true law enforcement agency, and that's part of the problem. You see in the news, there's some disappearances, and then the cruise lines say they're cooperating, and we have some real interesting stories about, okay, well, there was this thing that happened to a young lady on the boat, and a crew member was the culprit, and it was a sexual assault. So let's arrest the crew member. Oh, well, the crew member, we put him off in the Bahamas with a ticket home back to the Philippines.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
So things like that happen, and those are actionable cases. And it's actually interesting. I don't want to get too in the weeds, but it's when a crew member does something to a passenger, there's a heightened standard of care essentially for a commercial carrier like a cruise line. And it's like strict liability. Like a dog bite is strict liability. If a crew member does something to a passenger, they're going to be held strictly liable, regardless of whether they knew the dangerous propensity of that crew member, because the commercial carrier, the one good thing about that is that they have a duty to get you to your port safely. And so that's what the situation arises where, okay, they're going to be responsible for the seamen.
Seamen, so to speak.
They're crew member, yeah.
No pun intended.
No pun intended.
That's very interesting. So that, when I think of personal injury, and probably the average person, they think of car accidents, or regular negligence, but that sounds very interesting.
Yeah, that's the main thing. Car accidents are the most common, but there's so many we're in Miami, right? I'm in Miami. And car accident after car accident, but very little insurance is the problem.
Yes, I know. I have a daughter that just turned 16, and looking into car insurance, it is incredibly expensive for a 16-year-old.
Oh, yeah, and depending on the vehicle, obviously.
Right,
but
right.
You have to have uninsured motorist coverage and an umbrella for yourself if you're going to have your name on the car, which I recommend you don't, you should just put in your child's name.
Can you do that? Can you put it in a 16-year-old's name?
Yeah, I mean, they can be the title owner. And in fact, I'm not an asset protection lawyer, but I do know that much, that you could be held liable vicariously if you own the vehicle for up to a certain amount. So vicarious liability is there it's the financial responsibility law. It's a dangerous instrumentality. A vehicle is considered a dangerous instrumentality. And then under the other law, financial responsibility law, the owner of that vehicle can be held liable for the negligent acts. And there's also negligent entrustment types of cases, which we do. So, for example, if you got a bad kid and he's speeding a lot and you give him the keys to the car and he's a partier and he may have some alcohol and you've known that and you keep giving him the keys, you could be held liable. You could be negligent for more than just the vicarious amount.
That is very interesting.
Yeah.
So what propelled you into being a personal injury lawyer?
Well, it was about, 2001, and I was waiting to see if I passed the bar. And all my friends were getting jobs, but I was from Maryland. I wasn't from Florida, so I was waiting to hear from the Florida bar. And I'm like, I got to do something. So I just started, looking for jobs. And I wanted to be a sports agent, but then I realized that was going to be a little tough gig to get into. And so maybe I should learn a little bit about the law first. And so then I got a job. I had no idea what it was. It was insurance defense.
I did the same. I had the same path. That's what was hiring back then.
Yeah. And that's who had the ads in the paper. I didn't know where to look. I looked in some paper. I don't know what
Daily Business Review.
Whatever it was. Yeah, that's where they advertised. I don't know how I got a Daily Business Review. I don't know there was no internet. I'm trying to think back. You couldn't just go online.
I remember waiting for the bar results, and I think the internet had just come out. And that's how you checked your results. It was crazy.
Yeah, I just remember that first insurance defense job. There was Westlaw, but there was one computer that had dial-up. Now we sound like old people. I don't know who listens to
we are old people.
If we have young people or old people listening, but I had dial-up, and then if you wanted to print the case, it had the printer paper that had the holes on the side.
I have one better for you. When I was in law school, which was the late 90s, we worked on word processors.
Yeah.
They were not computers.
That's what that in law school, that's what I had. I took with me. I'm from Maryland originally, and I drove down, I loaded up a word processor, and I was like, I guess this is what we do. And then I was like, you know what? They have laptops now. I should probably get one. And but I still can't type to this day. So it's that is a disadvantage.
Yeah, that I can do, but I had a similar situation. I mean, how did you get clients? Your roots were not here. You're from Maryland. I'm from Jersey.
Right. So I'm still trying to do it, So, so the insurance defense thing, I was like, okay, I'm on the wrong side of this. This is no place for a guy like me, and I'm not going to get an institutional client as a 22-year-old guy coming out of law school. They're not going to trust me. And I looked very young. So no gray hair yet. And I had a case where it was against a well-known personal injury firm. And it was a really tragic case about a guy who got rear-ended by a tractor trailer. And this was on overseas highway down in the Keys. And he got smashed into one of those big cement poles. And he had to get his whole face rearranged, metal plates and everything. And he was a marine biologist, and he couldn't go underwater anymore, is what they said. And I was tasked with finding dirt on him. And I won't say where I worked or who told me what, but they were like, oh, there was a phantom car. And at the time I was naive, and I was like, yeah, there must have been a phantom car that caused the accident. I didn't realize that's what insurance companies they were manufacturing a defense. And then when it came time to take the young man's deposition, I looked at him and I felt horrible because I found all this dirt on him that he may have gone on a boat or whatever, and that he wasn't as hurt as he made out to be. And then I felt horrible. So I was like, I got to
Switch sides.
And then I was like, okay, now how do I get clients? Well, at first I worked for a personal injury firm that actually was on the other side of that case. And I eventually became a partner at that firm. And just through, they had cases, and look, I don't want to call myself an ambulance chaser, but I would inquire. If someone was injured, I was not shy.
Right.
If I saw a cast, I'd be like, oh man, how'd that happen to you? If you're genuine and likable somewhat, maybe someone will tell you their story and they may need a lawyer. And that's kind of how I did it. And I still do it. I always give my card out to this day, or give my email. I was just at a restaurant and I just did it with a waitress the other day. And she said she got bit by a sloth.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I was like, a sloth?
Where?
I've not had a sloth case yet. I have to have this case. And she's like, I signed a waiver, though, to handle the sloth at this farm. And I was like, I've gotten by the waiver before in certain situations. Let me have it. So I'm waiting to get that waiver because I want a sloth case.
Yeah, I didn't know they were vicious. I've held sloths before.
They're not vicious. They have bad eyesight. It's apparently what it is. And so, like, you feed it apple. Did you feed it apples?
I don't remember. It was in Honduras.
Okay. Yeah. So I think she said she was feeding an apple or a carrot or whatever, and it thought her finger was the food.
Okay.
So poor sloth.
Yeah, that would be an interesting case to handle. I don't know if you know this, but workers' compensation is strict liability.
Yes, that's the beauty of what you do. And maybe I should get into it. Maybe you can train me. So
it is nuanced, but
mm-hmm.
the downside is, we don't have to prove any liabilities. I don't know if this is the reason, but there is no pain and suffering element of a workers' comp.
And that's like the big element.
Dollars, yeah.
Yeah.
So our fees are traditionally less than yours.
And yours are more statutory,
yes.
So they're like they're
and
kind of graded.
Yeah.
I hope we're not going the way of that though for personal injury, because things are changing rapidly. There's House Bill 837 just passed, and now it's like really impacting cases. I don't know if you're familiar, but DeSantis rubber stamped. I'm not going to talk bad about politicians, but that was an insurance lobby thing, and it was not good for Floridians. It was very anti-consumer, victim, consumer, whatever you want to call it. But there's so many things it did that we don't even know the repercussions of. And they took away attorney's fees in different types of cases.
Yeah, I know, like all the PIP lawyers.
And first-party property insurance, which I also used to do a lot of. I cut that back a lot.
Right.
And that's part of the statute, is one of the reasons why. It's just, and now these storms are coming, people are never going to be made whole in Florida after a hurricane, or after you have to sue your own insurance company. Yeah. That law was there since, I think, 1898.
Oh my gosh.
That attorney, if you have to sue your own insurance company, if you prevail, the insurance company has to pay your fees. And that's to kind of even the playing field. And just with the pen stroke, a law that's been on the books for over 100 years, gone. 125 years in Florida. It's wild.
Some other laws too.
Yeah.
Big ones. But yes, there is a downside in Florida to certain practices of law if you are trying to practice, same with us. But there's some things I love about living in Florida as well.
Yeah.
It's but when it comes to attorneys, it does seem to be more pro insurance company here.
Pro big business, pro insurance. And here's the thing, I'm glad we were open during COVID.
Yes.
So yes. I commend our, government for that. And, I think we have more freedoms. I would hate to be, what's going on in California is horrible. I don't think that would happen here. And there's reason for that. But then there's a little downside, at least for lawyers. And our governor was a lawyer, which is.
And we won't get too political, but yeah. I'm still a DeSantis fan. But yeah, when it comes to my business. Yeah. What?
That's why I know I'm not too greedy and selfish, because I'm like, I'm glad we have, I'm glad he's pro certain things. I like the Middle East. I know he's on the right side of things.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to get too political there, but I mean, that's an obvious one. I think we got to support Israel and not terrorists. So I think that's pretty obvious. So I can say that. And so I'm glad he's like that. So that's more important to me, and having that kind of support than even my own, livelihood almost. So
Yeah.
I guess I can find something else to do. God forbid. I think the robots are going to take over anyway.
For lawyers, you do?
Well, I don't want to give away some ideas I have, but I think it's for most jobs, right? AI is one thing, and that's like difficult with the marketing. You already have to be learning some AI for at least for personal injury lawyers, and what you do, you advertise to the public, and you got to compete with other lawyers. And if they're using technology that has an advantage, you're going to have to start using it.
Yeah. But
like
I'm never going to have a firm where like a bot answers the phone. I just don't see that happening.
No, not that. But I'm just the production of
Oh, yeah.
in Google, like how you get cases to the public and stuff. People use content and stuff like that. That's But what you're doing is not robotic. It's like you're putting hard work, investment, and that's why people are going to call you when they have a work injury. And that's why I'm going to refer you my cases of workers' comp. And
that's what it is.
We're doing it.
What I have found, and, not to date myself, but I've been doing this a while. And the one thing that hasn't changed, despite all the technology and changes in fees and law, is that at the end of the day, people really want to be heard. And, I am that person for them. They are calling me and you at not a high point in their lives, but a very low point, stressed out, injured, their income is affected. They're in physical pain. So they want to vent to a person, and that's what we do, right? We're like part therapists in a way.
Right. And they want to know that it's not, a lot of times they want to talk to the lawyer. And that's one of my marketing things, and why I get cases from other lawyers that refer me cases, because they know that I'm paying attention to the case. I'm primary, even though I have other people in the office, I'm going to be the one making decisions and running. And you're not going to get that with the way firms are going now in the TV advertising and the marketing. The big firms are dominating. They get more cases, but your representation is not the same, and you're not going to talk to the lawyer, and you might have 3 different lawyers on your case before, you may have talked to the lawyer once, but it's kind of like a fungible lawyer.
Yeah, I know exactly the firms that you're referring to, and sometimes we get clients that have been represented by them, and their biggest complaint is, I never ever heard or met my lawyer.
Right.
Never heard him on the phone. Yeah. Always got an assistant, or changed lawyers 20 times.
How often have you asked, what's the name of your lawyer at that firm? I don't even know the name of my lawyer.
I know. And then they'll just have a second injury and call us, and I'll say, oh, you had a firm before. How come you didn't call them? I can't even remember who it was.
Right, exactly.
So it sounds like you share the same goal in, client satisfaction and good communication with the client.
So what do you do to remain in touch with past clients? Because work injuries can happen more frequently, repeatedly, than maybe even car accidents. So
we continue to bombard them with emails.
Okay.
Just to keep us top of the mind. And, you'll get a response to some of these emails. Like, it'll be like, a recipe during Thanksgiving, and then it'll be like, oh, my cousin was hurt. So you have to they have to know, it's got to be something memorable. We give them like a closing gift when they receive their check. And it's a towel. So hopefully it's something that they keep around. My brother's a criminal defense attorney, and he gives a T-shirt, and he said he's had clients that have had to like go into their drawer and look for that shirt to get his number. You got to do something where they remember you.
No, I know. I mean, I have family members that haven't called me, and they've called the big firm. And I'm like, how could you call, not close family members, but I'm like, how He was like, I forgot you do that. I figured you were just a medical malpractice lawyer. And I'm like, I do car accidents too. Yes. Well, I didn't think it was too small. I didn't want to bother you. I'm like, okay.
See, and I have the opposite problem. All I know and all I have ever done is workers' compensation, first for the insurance company for 15 years, and then on this side of things. And they'll call me, I need your help. I have like a dispute with my landlord.
Or I get a lot of landlord stuff.
Yeah, or like a child support issue.
Yeah.
I mean, one of my best friends, I'll literally read you her text today. She says, I need your legal assistance with writing me an argument for why my insurance claim should be comprehensive and why it should be covered. I'm like, this is Chinese to me. I do work injuries. They think you like know everything.
Yeah. And I try to say, call me for everything anyway, and I'll find you someone that can do it. So, but I get a lot of workers' comp calls because they think injuries, so they call me, and I was like, maybe I should start doing this stuff.
And we have had some of our referral partners try to do it.
Yeah.
It's just totally different. It's the same reason.
Game.
Same reason I don't try to do what you do, because I'm not about learning how to prove liability at this point in my career. I only know comp. We get a lot of calls for employment cases like discrimination, termination.
Yeah.
And those we refer out as well.
And everybody thinks they have one, and not a lot of plaintiffs' lawyers do that. That's the thing. There's a lot of employment defense lawyers, but there's not as many employment plaintiffs lawyers.
You are very right, and there's not usually a claim yet. I mean, the person will be like, I feel like I'm going to get fired.
Right.
But you haven't been yet, so.
Right. I mean, I get, same thing with med mal. I think that's the most common call I get, but it's not really med mal. Like medical malpractice is like a big animal and if you're going to have a real medical malpractice case, there has to be big injuries, because medical malpractice does happen. And so constantly,
but sadly it happens, and it actually happened to me, and I could not get an attorney because they all told me the damages weren't large enough. But saying that to somebody who had to undergo like surgery, chemotherapy, they were just like, but you're fine now. So
that's true. So there's a liability side, and then there's the damages. It's always cut into two parts. And I find a lot of cases, and I tell a lot of people, there was definitely medical negligence there. Your nurse was negligent. Yes, she poked you in the wrong arm and you blew up, tremendously. But fortunately, they caught it. The negligence, the actionable cases that have a value, because they cost so much money to bring, and that's purposeful. You have to hire a doctor. You have to get all these records. It costs thousands of dollars just to get the records, and then to get a doctor to look at them, it's another. And you may need 4 different doctors because it touches 4 different specialties. Super expensive. And so you got to have a case worth a few $100,000 really to make it worthwhile. Then you have all these government county hospitals. They're basic. They have sovereign immunity. Jackson, you're not going to really take a medical malpractice case against Jackson unless it's clear cut and you think the county might pay, the cap, or the doctor may be private. There's some ways, but most of the time, no. And so, people think, oh, the doctor didn't treat me right. Like, you don't like his bedside manner is not negligence.
Yeah, we had a guy that was complaining that the physical therapist, he said he sexually touched him inappropriately, and we were just like, you need to go file go press charges.
Charges, right.
Without that, we can't really do anything.
That's the thing with the pain and suffering and emotional damages, which you don't have to deal with really in workers' comp. And you could just say, unfortunately, we can't, that's not something we can get for you in comp. But here, I get calls that are like, I'm so upset. I can't believe this happened. It's ridiculous. And I'm like, you know what? It is. But are you going to a doctor for it? Like, do you have physical manifestations of symptoms? You have to have a physical injury to get those emotional damages. You can't just say you're upset, We have
the same thing. And then you find out, they've maybe been treating with a psychiatrist for 25 years for anxiety or something.
Yeah. And that's hard. I mean, and they may have been aggravated or exacerbated, but it's just they're not going to look at it the same way. I mean, insurance companies they're bad news.
Well, look what just happened with United Healthcare, the tragedy there. But it is a statement on how the public feels about insurance companies.
Yeah, it's and it's wrong. So I don't think that no matter what they do, you can't kill someone.
Them. Right.
It's crazy.
Right.
I mean, the world's crazy right now, and people are supporting and like doing GoFundMe's for the guy for the murderer. It's insane.
I know. They're talking about his looks when, somebody's father was killed. That's pretty pathetic. But what do you do when you are not practicing law?
Well, I have a 3-year-old, so I'm doing a lot of 3-year-old time. I started late in life with kids, so that is dominating my time. And so there's good and bad that I waited so long because now that I'm a little more, I don't work for someone, I can take the time when I need it, and I don't feel like, oh my God, I'm not, obviously I have that anxiety when I'm not working, just from working for almost 25 years and having to do stuff, but I can kind of chill out a little and spend the time that I need to. But I used to do a lot more fun things, but now I'm like, it's a different fun.
No, I get it, but enjoy it because it really goes so quickly.
I see all those Instagram posts, like how quick, like that, those formative years are. So I am going to get the tattoo. No regrets.
You should, because like I blinked and like now we're looking at colleges. It's just crazy.
It's nuts. Yeah. My nephew just got into is in University of Miami. He's starting now in the spring.
That's where I went.
I went there for law school, but they knocked down the dorms.
All of the
freshman dorms? Most of the dorms are knocked down. So he's living like a 30-year-old bachelor over the Whole Foods in South Miami.
Well, we lived in an apartment complex. It was just like, if you remember the show Melrose Place, it was like all of us in this apartment complex. But yeah, Miami is a different, totally different school.
Different type of school.
Yeah, I want my girls to get more of like a campus experience.
Right. We were just talking about that. Like, well, he's living like an adult already. Is he going to like rush? Is he going to do the Greek life? He better do the Greek life.
Yeah, I did it there. It was fun. But like, if you go to like FSU, it's way more of like a college town. Miami, we were going to South Beach when I was.
Yeah, you're going to clubs.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on. And where can people find you? Are you on social media?
Yeah, we're on X, formerly Twitter, Instagram. It's Perkins Law Offices, Facebook, Meta, whatever you call it now. We're on all of them. PerkinsLawOffices.com. It's also called Perkins Personal Injury Lawyers. And
any relation to Perkins, the restaurant?
No, I wish. Everybody always asks me that.
Yeah. There's another Perkins Injury Law out of Connecticut. That's not you.
That is not me. No. There's a lot of Perkins out there, which I think also helps, because I think some people, once in a while, they just see my name, they click it because they can pronounce it. And they're like, I like Perkins. But if they don't like the French fries, I heard everybody likes the French fries at Perkins. I've never ate at one.
The pancakes.
So, the pancakes, okay. I got to try it out. Maybe I should make my logo green. Isn't there green and yellow?
I don't know. Oh, yeah, I think they are. But or just make your logo a pancake.
That would be good. Or a French fry.
Thank you so much for coming on. Hope to talk to you soon.
Me.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Success of a Hot Mess. If you loved what you heard today, be sure to subscribe so you never miss a beat. And hey, sharing is caring. Share this podcast with your friends, family, and anyone who could use a dose of inspiration. Until next time, keep rocking those hot mess moments with style and grace. Cheers.